Lovely to talk to you about this very exciting new master's programme. And there's a couple of things that strike me about it, Louise. It really has come from the collective experience within your department for many years that underpins the design of this course.
It's been a long time coming, this course, and I think for me what has been really exciting about developing it is pulling from I suppose we have a master's in art therapy here in the department, and we also have the professional masters in art and design education. So we've got those two kind of spaces, the very art and therapy, and then art and education, and the space in between, and we've pulled from all of those to kind of make what we think is a really good offering in that space in between.
And the MTU Crawford has always been really out there about making collaborations, making partnerships with other groups who were interested in just this, in arts engagement.
Yeah, and I think going back to the 90s, my first experience of the Crawford after I finished college myself was I was coming in to work on a fall scheme, which is now Cork Community Art Link, and I'm working in psychiatric hospitals, working in community settings, working with the Cope Foundation, and I suppose building on those connections and bringing the art practice into those different community settings.
And you've brought that out into the wider world as well with European connections and hosting very important conferences over the years as well.
In 2013 and 2016, we had two very significant international exhibitions, and we collaborated with the Cork City Council and with the Crawford Art Gallery to bring the work of people with learning disabilities and with other specific needs who needed support to make their work into a gallery setting. Out of that has come, I suppose, ongoing really strong connections with a number of artists, and we have now set up the Crawford Supported Studio between the Crawford Art Gallery and ourselves to support artists and to keep that space going for a number of people to develop their own art practice.
And the kind of student who will be drawn to this master's, you have a line in the beginning of your program and it stresses, well, I feel that the kind of person you'll be drawing to this will be artists who feel that art and culture should be part of the living environment. And it's that line, the part of the living environment, that you stress.
Yes, and I, for me, that's really important. That it's so important to have that kind of creative engagement and that scope to express through through other means, I suppose, not just words. I think that's critical, and I think it's something that we've kind of pushed to the sidelines a bit. So, for over 10 years now, we have had funding from Irish Aid to deliver training and around development education and to look at the role of the arts in delivering that training. We've also been increasingly looking at the role of the arts within well-being, and I suppose there's evidence that that it has a very significant role to play in both of those areas and across that spread. So it is very much in the arts does have a role to play in transformation and in having a richer engagement in life. And that's what we are hoping to train people to do and to support within this master's program.
But I'm really struck by the balance between research and personal development of the artist. There's plenty of scope within this master's degree for the artist to develop their own practice, as well as how to really work effectively in engaging others in the artistic process.
Yes, as artists as creative individuals, we have a particular way of living, of bringing our practice into the living environment. And I would see it's really important to develop that and to continue exploring how you as an artist can be when you're with others, so that your practice isn't just something that's kept completely separate. So that's why we put a strong emphasis on developing your own art practice. That might be, depending on the individual, It may be that you want to develop your art practice just informed by working alongside other people. It may be that your art practice incorporates the experiences of other people, or you may collaborate with other people in your art practice, or it may be that your practice is very much about facilitating the practice of others. So there's quite a broad spectrum that we would be, I suppose, looking to accommodate within that.
And there's a great collaborative spirit in MTU Crawford as well. I mean, you have 94 full-time and part-time students on MA courses alone.
Most of those students are we're all housed within this building in Grand Parade. Most of those students are within the one department in Arts and Health and Education. And we are looking at different ways that they can collaborate together. So a few years ago, some of the art therapy students and some of the education students worked with the Crawford Gallery, looking at the role of arts within gallery education. There was also a connection with Singapore and a similar project that was going on over there. So I mean, I really believe that, that learning is enriched and deepened when we come together and share the learning experience, that it isn't a solitary experience. So it's about looking for different ways to do that.
And you're right in the heart of the city there. I envisage very lively conversations over coffees and things about topics like equality and social justice and power and autonomy, and how the arts are really important in the personal life of the artist, and then how that artist draws other people into that engagement.
Part of this master's, it incorporates the Creativity and Change program, which is a 20 credit level 9 program. And a lot of what that program is about looking at the sustainable development goals, but through the arts and through, I suppose, engaging people in dialogue and looking at how can you envision change, how can you work towards change, and on a very practical level, what that has brought to the city has been the big mural that kind of wraps around the hoarding around what would have been the Sullivan's Quay building, the old Foss building. There's also been, tables set up when the environment marches were going on back in the day when there were people in the city. So there has been that real kind of, I suppose, to and fro of kind of moving out of the building, out onto the streets and back into the building again.
And this is a particularly interesting time now, coming out of lockdown, where artists have had a lot of challenges themselves in their own art making. And then the emphasis that society will now put on collectively engaging in looking at our world again through the arts. Research-wise, it's a very interesting time, isn't it? And there has been some very interesting research coming out of the WHO, who have a very audible voice at the moment now worldwide, coming out of the pandemic.
And about 2 years ago, the WHO published a huge, called it a scoping review, and I think it included about 900 peer-reviewed articles and pieces of research, all related to the role of the arts within a health and well-being context. And there was a resounding kind of, yes, it does have a significant role to play within that context. So it was the first big review of its kind, and I think the outcome was, it's fantastic for all of us who've been working in that area for so long to now be able to say, yes, it does make a difference, and to look at the range of different ways that we can bring creative practices into a well-being or a health context.
But you're in a great position then to direct your researching master's students to areas on which there's already good foundation been laid for them to create then their own new research out of it and develop their own work within that academic research context as well.
Exactly, yeah. And I suppose the master's runs over 2 years part-time, and the second year of that, a huge chunk of that is the student doing their own piece of research. So they would be setting up a project and running it and then evaluating the outcomes of it in a specific context.
In year 2, they'll be able to choose between 2 specialisms, health and well-being and global citizenship.
Yes, so we have a number of electives built into the program, and in the second year, students would either choose to do arts and or health and well-being and the role of arts within that context, or what we currently run is the creativity and change program. And that's very much got a focus on development education and global citizenship. So one, I suppose, is more around that kind of um, engaged citizenship, really, and who am I, and what can I do to make the world a better place on a local level. That may very well have global change, but beginning with me as a person, and what can I do here, and I suppose feeling empowered to work towards change. And then the other piece is the arts and well-being, which again, coming out of the pandemic, I think, we're all more and more aware of just how critical that is. The very first thing that we did when lockdown struck was, there was memes, there was little videos shooting into everybody's WhatsApp family group. It was all media, it was all visual ways. Kind of music movement, we may not have recognized it as such, but it was, how can we express, or how can we acknowledge what we're going through in a way that is beyond words.
But having come through the pandemic now, I think community is a very strong word again, and it's being interrogated in a very meaningful way, really. So for an artist who has thought a lot about community and reaching out, you really can provide the skills on this course, can't you, to do that on an individual, on a group level, or even in just the wider societal context.
Yeah, and I think, in the developing of the course, it was really, what are the core things that we need to look at? What are the core skills that we need to provide people with to go and work in this area?
And
And
what are they, Louise?
for me and for the team who worked on this program, group facilitation would be a huge one. How do you hold that group space? How do you acknowledge the individuals within the group? How do you support the individuals within the group? How do you, that group learning, how do you facilitate that? All of that.
You've talked before about, for example, how does the artist know when to leave the person alone to get on with their art? I think that's a lovely, simple idea, but to learn that skill properly.
Mhm. And I think, and that's a big challenge, because when you are tasked by an organization to go in and do a project, there is that responsibility. I need an end result, and to find that tipping point between directing towards an end result and supporting the group to find their own path towards that end result. And that's a really challenging kind of space to be in, but with the right training and the right skills, it's a really enriching space to be in.
And
Yeah.
then clearly you'll be creating opportunities for your students to go out in a safe environment and test those skills of group facilitation.
Yes. So I suppose a number, I would expect that most people coming on will have had some experience already, and that's how they'll know that this is an area that they want to learn more in. Um, we have on a Thursday currently within our building, we have the Crawford Supported Studio. So we have a group of 14 artists who come in regularly with additional needs, and they're supported to develop their practice. A number of the courses have collaborated with them, have shared workshops with them, have learned, that they've learned together. So, and that has been an incredibly, what's the word? I mean, rich, but a very privileged as well space to kind of to learn from people, with diverse intelligences, and to yeah, to see the world through a different lens. And so, before you even step out the door, we have experiences within the building as well that for people to engage with. And then, as I said, in the second year, there is this opportunity to go out and work with a group as part of your research project.
I have a couple of short questions for you. Who do you see as the typical person who'll be drawn to this Masters in Arts Engagement?
I would see people coming from an arts background, and that could be visual arts, it could be music, it could be drama, but people who want to collaborate with others, who want to work with others, and who want to engage others in creative processes, but feel I need more skills, I need more experience before I step into that space. I would also think it will draw from people in the kind of social sciences area who are, who maybe have got some of the people skills, but are really aware of how the arts can play a big role within this space and want to develop that aspect. So coming from the two sides.
Tell me, what's the difference between art therapy and arts engagement?
Excellent question.
From the student's point.
The art therapy is very much, I think, about looking inward, looking at finding a voice for the struggles, the difficulties that you may have, and finding another way of expressing them so that you can work through them. But it's working on a very deep level with personal issues. The arts and engagement I would see as looking outwards. So the focus is more on expressing maybe external issues. So whether it's in a community context, maybe just about engaging for the just because it's relaxing. There is a therapeutic component to it, no doubt, but the focus isn't on that kind of psychotherapeutic, kind of really inward looking piece. The focus is more outward looking.
So the artist who's interested in societal change will be very drawn to this course.
Absolutely, yes, yeah. And I think as well, the artists who are aware of, just how making art makes them feel. It can be a nice space, it can be a mindful space, it can be a relaxing space, it can be a space that helps you to move on from something that you're stuck with. Sometimes, for me, I've got my little viruses stuck up on the wall behind me there. That was part of my COVID kind of practice, was nothing deliberate. I just sat down one night with a crochet hook and wool and just crocheted and started making circular little kind of pot stands. And then I was watching the news one day and these little tendrils appeared on them. And there was nothing planned in it, but it was my way of just kind of managing this huge unknown thing that was the lockdown and the coronavirus, and it was a mindful, just relaxing process. That may be it's what some people want from it, but it's, I suppose, everybody's going to find their own path, and it's for us to be able to train people to facilitate others to find their own path in it.
And through engaging with the academic research that exists there now, you're actually making spokespeople for engaging through the arts for the future.
Yes, yeah, and I suppose to add to the World Health Organization, the United Nations, and their I suppose the Sustainable Development Goals that they are wanting all of us to work towards. They have acknowledged the important role of the arts and culture in working towards those, and even the fact that each of those Sustainable Development Goals has a very specific icon for it. They've already turned to the image as a way to kind of capture what those goals are.
So the artist who wants to work, say, with young people, talking about that educational skills for the future, those undefined skills, and the artist who maybe would prefer to work with people in mental health areas or disability, additional needs, they'll find a pathway through the course, will they?
They will, and I suppose again, the emphasis that we have put on the course is around, I suppose, understanding the core of what is it about the arts that works, what is it about engaging the senses in expressing ourselves. You know, what is it about the role of metaphor in expressing ourselves? What is it about working with groups that what is it about that works?
Louise, if I'm an artist who wants to be an advocate for social change, for social justice, for equality, for learning through the arts, in what way will the course help me to become that advocate for the future?
Okay, so what the course aims to do is to, I suppose, provide you with that foundational setting with those core skills that you can then take and adapt, you know, depending on the situation that you want to work in. So if you do want to work in the area of social transformation, how can I use the arts in that space? How can I use the arts to activate people to think about things from a different perspective? If you want to work with young people, you know, how can I adapt the skills that the arts brings, you know, so to enable young people to express themselves in that area. So I suppose, you know, what we're wanting to do is to give a really solid foundation in terms of the skills, in terms of what it is about the arts, how does it work, so that you can then take it and adapt it. So we're not looking at these skills can only be applied in this context, but here's this toolkit of information that you can now take and work with and adapt depending on the context that you are going off to work in.
And there's some very interesting research coming out of the World Health Organization and the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the OECD.
It yes, and you know, we've mentioned the World Health Organization, but the OECD in particular, they talk about future skills, and these are skills that they would see that everybody needs to be able to work in an uncertain future, because you know, change is happening so quickly and development is happening so quickly that we don't know what the future holds. We don't know what jobs are going to be there. Um, and and so they've identified that, you know, these specific skills around adaptability, around teamwork, around creativity, you know, that there's a number of them that they highlight. And we would see the arts as playing a huge role in developing those skills in people. You know, that ability to kind of look at a problem and look at it from a number of different perspectives rather than just seeing one route or one direction of travel.
And the Masters in Arts engagement, as well as allowing the artists to develop their own practice, will give them the confidence in their ability to work in the area of arts engagement in a way that promotes the goals or the research, or underpins the research that's coming out of the OECD and the WHO.
It will, because they'll be working in that area with I suppose with understanding rather than, you know, just, well, I think this works but I'm not quite sure why. And that's really what we want to provide is, you know, that why does it work? And we have one of the modules within the first year, it's called Materials, Metaphor and Engagement. And it's really looking at that, you know, what is it about engaging with materials, engaging with the movement, with incorporating the senses into learning, into being in a group. What is it about that shifts it from just talking? What is it about metaphor, you know, that capacity to I suppose, yeah, to use symbols, to use metaphors to express, you know, that goes beyond words. And what is it about being in a group that works, that is different from being on your own? What is the more than experience?
One final question. The Masters in Arts engagement begins in September. Tell us about the excitement you feel ahead of that new beginning.
I suppose this program has been so many years in development, but it really feels like right now is the right time to be launching it. You know, we have a good team of staff, you know, eager to get going on it. There's been so much change, you know, with COVID, with Brexit, even with, you know, everything just feels like it's kind of up in the air at the moment. But there's so much potential that comes with change, and being able to provide a training for people to work within that area, it feels really exciting.
It's really something that this course comes on stream. I know how long it takes to put a course like this together, but it seems to just have hit the button at the right time.
That is the feeling, you know, when we were going through the validation process, and we had to, you know, there was a number of people on the validation panel. We had somebody from the Pratt Institute in Brooklyn. We had Alva Murphy from Create Ireland. We had Marilyn Lennon from LSAD, and we had Siobhan Clancy from the City Arts Office. All of them, you know, looking at it from a different perspective, but all of them feeling like this is the right time for this program, and really eager to see it and get up and running and begin to have an impact.
So it's a really exciting time, and a very exciting time for the students who will be part of your Masters in Arts engagement, right in the heart of Cork City, on that beautiful building and Grand Parade, in that really, really creative environment. So I wish you all the very best of luck, to your students, to the staff, and lovely to talk to you, Louise Foott, today.
Thank you very much, Evelyn.